Loud and clear.
Good deal. We'll call this Board of Supervisors meeting to order. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. If Supervisor Warren will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move into the, well, I wanted to say that Chairman Gomez isn't here, but he's on the phone with us today. And we'll move into the next agenda item, call to the public. Anybody in call to the public? Good.
So good morning, my name is Teresa Campbell. I'm here with my friend Stephanie Collier. We serve as leaders with the Greeley County Substance Abuse Coalition. And it's a collaborative group that is dedicated to strengthening prevention and community wellness within Greeley County. And as I mentioned, it's a collaborative group. We have many different partners: law enforcement, government leaders, healthcare, businesses, parents, youth groups. Who else did I miss? A recovery community. That we just need the vast kind of representation from all of Greeley County so that we can reach different aspects of prevention, for prevention, education, and community members. And we're always looking for new members.
So one of our initiatives is naloxone awareness and distribution. We provide free training on recognizing an overdose, administering naloxone, and understanding follow-up steps. We also distribute naloxone at no cost to any county department or any community member who wishes to carry it.
Here.
In fact, we will be providing naloxone to the assessor's office, and we have already provided it to the recorder's office. Our goal is a simple one, to equip Greeley County with life-saving tools and knowledge that naloxone is safe, easy to use, and proven to save lives. Ensuring that county staff and departments have access to it strengthens our community's ability to respond quickly and confidently in an emergency. If you're interested, please contact us. We'll be happy to help.
We also wanted to share that we have meetings every month, the first Wednesday of every month from 12 to 1. We rotate from Duncan to Morenci. So on the odd number of months, it's at Duncan Middle School Teachers Lounge, and on the even number of months, we're at the Morenci School District. Again, 12 to 1, we typically try to have lunch there for everybody, and we really want to encourage more people to attend, because the more, representation we have within the community, the better that we will be, and we'll be stronger.
Thank you for this opportunity to introduce ourselves and share the work that we're doing. We look forward to continuing to support Greeley County and collaborating with all of you to keep our communities safe, informed, and connected.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else in call to the public? No? All right. We'll move on to agenda item 2. The Board of Supervisors will convene as the Board of Directors of the Greeley County Public Health Service District and will reconvene as the Board of Supervisors following consideration of the following items. Consent agenda.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda as noted.
I second that motion.
All right. Any discussion? Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 3. We'll reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. Then we'll go to agenda item 3, the Flood Control District. The Board of Supervisors will convene as the Board of Directors of the Greeley County Flood Control District and will reconvene as the Board of Supervisors for following consideration of the following items. The consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as noted for the Flood Control District.
I second that motion.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. We'll now reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. We'll go to agenda item 4, public hearing pursuant to ARS 41-17104, adoption of the fiscal year 2026-2027 final budget. Do I hear a motion to go into public hearing?
I'd like to make a motion that we go into public hearing for the adoption of the fiscal year 2026-2027 final budget.
I second that motion.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. We are now in public hearing. Any comments from anybody in the public on our proposed budget? All right. Well, I think on that step 2 motion.
I move that we go out of public hearing and go to a special board meeting to consider adopting the fiscal year 2026-27 final budget.
I second that motion.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. We are out of public hearing. We'll go to agenda item 5, discussion action regarding the adoption of the fiscal year 2026-2027 Greenlee County final budget. Derek, it's all you.
I will cover this somewhat quickly. I don't want to gloss over anything that's important. We've covered this, obviously began budget discussions back in late February, early March, when we talked about potential cost of living adjustments. We talked about how we divide up healthcare costs and so forth. So this conversation has been going on for several months, which is typical. I'll cover some of the highlights and point out there's been a change. We're no longer the leader in the clubhouse on one issue, but there's a solid reason for that. So the process for adopting a county budget is an annual process, unlike many private corporations or other organizations that set a budget and then adjust it monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly. We set one budget per year, and that brings its challenges in that it's hard to look in the crystal ball and see what's going to be happening, say 8, 9, 10 months from now. But the process itself is quite extensive, and it's designed by statute. We have gone through the process of adopting a tentative budget. It has been out there for the public to consume. There have been years when the public has been concerned about certain things. This year we've not heard anything in the office, and it's a fairly ho-hum budget, so maybe that's the reason why. But this last step of adopting the final budget locks us in. We do not have the authority to up our budget at this stage. We could lower it if you wished. We've gone through all the adjustments leading up to the tentative budget, and so at this point, obviously our recommendation is going to be that you adopt the final budget, which is a mirror image of the tentative budget. The principles we use pretty much every year, but some of the more fine-tuned ones adjust from year to year so that we can adapt to changing conditions. You'll see one of those come up in a slide or two. We've dramatically increased our budgeted capital improvement budget. We've had the cash behind it to do some things. However, because of some repairs that we need to address and evaluate, as well as some ongoing projects we need to finish, we shifted the remaining federally sourced dollars into our capital improvement budget, as well as increased our budget capacity. So in county spending, you have to not only have the money behind it, but you also have given yourself budget capacity to spend it. So we dramatically increased that. Our tiered capital improvement plan will be the game plan. We've increased our tier 1 plans primarily by adding as we've reviewed before, the potential repairs that we need to address. Most of our capital improvement is to continue finishing up the projects that we've begun, rather than taking on new ambitious projects. By having shifted some of the cash to help us on our capital, we will not sacrifice core functions to complete capital projects. We also built in, as we have the last 6 or 7 years, capacity for unexpected grants. Now, sometimes grants come in that are not what we call general fund grants. And so we account for those differently. They're special revenue. If they come in, we can deal with those. On our general fund side, however, if we were to receive $200,000, say in January, and we didn't budget for it, we could not use it. So this gives us a bit of budget capacity in case we receive grants. Some are ones that we've applied for, some that we expect. The grant cycle hasn't opened up yet, but that allows us to use that money. This is one of those areas where we fine tune every year. For the last 2 years, we kept our shared sales tax projections at about $5 million, $5.4 million. We raised it by 10% this year, but you'll see, we just got our June numbers yesterday. Overall, we're 31.29% above projection, and the trend is on the way up. You know, it seems like sometimes we wake up every morning just to see what happened new in the world. Well, as you may have heard, oil prices are on their way up again, literally overnight. And it is very difficult to see ahead what the next, I would say certainly 60 days looks like. The President notified Congress last night of a new window of a 60-day military operation. And so, having done that, we still took a conservative approach to our revenue projection, but we feel comfortable with the $6 million shared sales tax revenue. One of the things, and our auditors are adjusting to this as well, but we've refined the way we buy things, and that has made us more efficient. So for example, rather than coming to the board and saying, may we go purchase this item, come back a month later, here's our 3 options, and then go from there, we're bringing the options to the board and say, we've done our homework, can we purchase this item? And so that has shortened our lead times. The way we acquire vehicles, we've had local vendors win bids, but we're also not limited to bidding processes. And so that has made us both cost efficient as well as time efficient. And we'll continue to refine those practices so that we get the most value for the county. One thing we've discovered sort of the hard way this last year is that staff time and staff resources is a cost. There's a dollar attached to it, but there's also an opportunity cost attached to it. And so by streamlining these processes, we will lower that overall cost. This is a principle we always live on, basically. We're going to spend only what we have. And while there's a relief valve built into the budget, we don't intend to get there unless things really turn south on the revenue side. But this allows us to have some reserve for financial stability and for emergencies, but essentially we're living within our means. And it focuses on long-term fiscal stability. We've already started, Austin, well, primarily Renee and Austin have been looking at this. We'll continue into the fall of looking at some of our long-term forecasting, see if we can make that better and understand our revenue fluctuations, because our expense doesn't fluctuate a lot unless we approve positions or dramatically approve higher wage increases. It's a very difficult thing, economically speaking, when you need to try to stay up with inflation, but inflation is driving every other cost in your budget as well. And revenues often are inversely related to higher expenses. I didn't check the CIP this morning, but the last posted one we had was for May. It should be posted for June probably in the next day or two. Long and short, inflation nationally is running around 4.2%. In Arizona, it's running less than that, but the Arizona economy over the last year or 2 years has lagged the national economy. We will see as in the fall when they switch to winter blend fuels that some of that will trail in. But the 4% increase in wages will stay ahead of it. So that 4.2 is just a recent development. Inflation has been in well, it started out before the war, it was about 2.7%. It's steadily climbed through the war up to this 4.2. I expect it to be higher in June than it was in May, but probably not into the 5%, maybe 4.3 or 4.4. We'll see soon. Again, that's the volatility. You hear me complain about, I can live with bad policy as long as it's consistent policy when it comes to budgeting, easier than I can live with volatile policy. But our employees, their buying power should not diminish given the 4%. We're going to want to watch that as the economy eventually levels out, because 4% per year is not necessarily sustainable. With our budget stability built in, and like I said, there's a relief valve in that we have our budget stability fund, which is a $5 million fund. That gives us a safety net. In fact, I was thinking this morning that you weave and mend your nets when there isn't an emergency, or when you're not out fishing, if you will. And that's what we've done with this long-term stable look at this. We're constantly looking at, why has there been an accumulation of cash? Why is that cash going down? What do we need to do to sustain when the cash goes away? And we're looking at that constantly, not just during the budget development. I've mentioned this during the temporary budget or the tentative budget. I'll mention it again. I love how, as a county family, we're looking for ways not just to live within our means, but to tighten the belts. Each of our elected officials comes, and they come with real solutions. And they're not just today. They're looking forward to, what happens if there's a transition coming? What happens if our key personnel, leave or retire? How do we plan for that? And that gives that budget stability, so we can plan for it now, so it doesn't, spring on us 3/4 of the way through the year. And that's a lot of credit to our elected officials and our department heads. I want you to focus on that top number, 435, 467, 367. You'll notice that is the smallest number other than the 2019-2020. You'll recall 2019-2020 was the beginning of the pandemic, and there was a lot of economic disruption. Why is that top number important? Because, as we know, our assessed value has a direct inverse relationship with our basic property tax rate. We've been on a 3-year downslide in the assessed valuation because our economy, our local budget is based on a single industry economy. Those things have a wider swing and a more dramatic effect on the fundamentals of our property tax basis. But that number, that low number, will show up here in a couple of slides. Our primary property tax is, of course, higher than it's been. It's higher than any of the ones before it. Again, that is a direct inverse of our assessed property values. We have not, in my tenure here, nor in several years before, ever exceeded the T&T rate. We've generally gone to the T&T rate, and so that the actual rate changes a bit. The difference between last year's and this year's, tax rate on a $100,000 home is about $9. It looks dramatic, but the truth is, it's not that big of a hit. Here's where we've started to slide. We've always come in at number 2 or 3 on this list. This is our basic primary property tax, the primary property tax. This is what goes to assist in the funding of the core functions of county government. Coconino County is sort of the deceptive leader in the clubhouse. So as you know, in a golf course, the first guy to go out and score is the leader in the clubhouse. There's a lot can change after that. There was a comment made by my colleague from Coconino County that they're going to have to find more revenue sources. And I thought, how about cutting expenses? But I didn't vocalize that. that's, they'll get there. They manage their stuff well.
Now look where Coconino is on this slide and wait for the next slide.
We're coming up. Yes, exactly. Tease the ending here. This is a graphic depiction. You'll see that Greeley County is fourth on that list. I put this in here every year simply to give you a sense of the value that we offer our citizens. If you go down to those last five, it really starts to stretch out there. And so, whereas a $100,000 home taxpayer in Greeley County is paying $89.67 on their county property tax, that same home in Pima County is going to cost you, $427.33. So there really is value here, and we continue to run lean. We try to do some things, but we run pretty lean. This is our combined. This is where you add in the flood control tax along with the Public Health Services District. This is a little bit deceptive. So, for example, the flood control district only raises about, do you recall off the top of your head, what is it, couple hundred thousand per year? That's because the tax base is so much smaller. It only taxes real property, not personal property. Most of the value, frankly, in the county is with personal property, which includes trucks and conveyor belts and all those things that make the mine work. But the land itself doesn't yield that much. But when you look at combined property tax rates, it throws in there. You recall last year we cut that property tax for the flood control district down a little bit. It didn't change what we brought in by more than, I think, $10,000. But it does affect our overall tax rate. So again, here, with everything that Greeley County is taxing, it'd be $133.91 on a $100,000 home in the current tax year. One of the things, and unfortunately our treasurer often gets this more than anybody else, we get calls about it, is that your tax bill that you get doesn't only include county taxes. And so we include an insert in every year that sort of explains to each taxpayer where your tax bill is going to. Schools are expensive. There's no way around it. But you may also have some irrigable land in the Duncan area and get charged for your ditch assessments and so forth. Here's the only time in my memory that we have not been number one in this. Maricopa County. There are weird times in county government where Maricopa and Greenlee are aligned. This is one of those weird things. You would find it strange that the largest, I think the sixth largest or fourth largest county in the entire country and little Greenlee County are running neck and neck. They benefit from a very diverse economy and very large economies of scale. They have discussions about things when we're getting together as managers. They asked, for example, one time about whether or not we get a lot of complaints about billboards. We don't. And so they tackle problems that we just don't have. But for the first time in my memory, we are not the leader at the end of the day on the combined property tax. Again, there starts to be a pretty good jump to Coconino, and by the time you get down to Pima County, you're looking at 531, maybe 532. By the time you combine all of their tax rates,
We're still tied, 1.33. That's
1.33. That's right.
We're rounding up just a little.
It's a rounding. We're at 1.34, both of us. Exactly. Just depends how
No,
many
that's
digits you
okay,
put
we
there. So I will make sure that my counterpart in Maricopa knows that. We're right there with you. Again, this is where those bottom three counties. Gila County's not changed their tax rate in several years, but it starts out at 419, and they throw a few other things on it. So again, in terms of overall value, it's clear that we offer a good product. We provide good services to our citizens at a very inexpensive price. It cannot be emphasized enough what it means to work with and live in a county where we have such an excellent corporate citizen and partner. That makes a difference. This is our primary revenue sources and sort of what has happened to them. You'll see the property taxes up not quite 5%. The vehicle licensing tax, the VLT, it sounds like a sandwich, is actually what derives from when you license your car every year. That's up about 3%. Our half-cent sales, we have not changed that projection. We'll talk about that later. But we've been pretty on point. I think we'd end up about $161,000 above our projection for 26, and so we felt safe about that. Obviously, state sales tax up by 10%, and that we could probably have fudged that if we were a little bit more risk accepting. We could have boosted that 20%, 30%. But since you can't see, better to, and we can live with this 10% projection. PILT is up a little bit. The rest are by and large unchanged. You'll see our other general fund revenues are down quite a bit. They are almost insignificant. So, for example, fines that are paid into the courts, those kind of things. They're there, but they don't generate a lot of revenue even in good years. And so we adjust those based on what occurred in 26. And so overall they're down, but that's not a dramatic drop in our overall budget intake. We have, going back this, we've got essentially those top 6 entries are the bulk of our budget. This shows a breakdown of expenses by percentage and raw dollars of what they represent of our overall budget. So you'll see law enforcement, and this is always true. It's up a little bit this year because the board approved some additional positions, but it represents 27% of our overall spend. That includes our jail costs as well as our law enforcement costs. To his credit, the sheriff has been aggressive at looking for grants. In fact, we've already agreed that one of our next things, as soon as this budget is put to bed and the tax rates are set, is we're going to sit down and map out all the grants that he's got, all the ones he's applying for, and say, where can we best utilize those? Where are we allowed to use the money, and where can we best utilize it? But nevertheless, law enforcement is expensive. The court system, which includes the county attorney's office, makes up not quite 14% of our budget. All other elected officials, that's assessor, superintendent, clerk of the court, well, not clerk of the court, but all the rest make up only about 11% of our budget. They're very static budgets, and that has a lot to do with our electeds who run those offices. We're not seeing dramatic, requests come in for lots of new personnel or lots of new equipment, and that's to their credit. That's very stable and makes it very easy for us to budget and plan for that. All other services, that's from elections to animal control to roads to public works, make up about not quite half our budget, 48%. But that's everything else thrown in. Healthcare costs, of course, increased by 8.3%. The initial proposal was 17.2. We made some adjustments primarily on the prescription drug portion of our insurance coverage that we expect will result in a lot of savings. Healthcare right now being driven, I would say, number one by biologics. All the things you see advertised on television are tremendously driving healthcare costs up. Notwithstanding those disclaimers you hear at the end that'll do everything from disembowel you to remove your head, people line up. They want these things. And so we have found a better way to try and get access to those medications when people really need them and set up a pretty good gatekeeping when they don't. But I expect that next year will go up again, that healthcare cost. Arizona State Retirement System, we're down slightly. We generally run around 12%. This is slightly down. The public safety is up. And that we've talked about that before. That is primarily because the board has approved wages ahead of assumed wage increase. We've accounted for that by paying down the expanded unfunded liability. So I expect in fiscal year 28, which is when that will affect us, that contribution rate will go down quite dramatically, probably to the 15-16% range. Elected official retirement, there's been a philosophical change in that there was this notion that once that system became more healthy, that they would lower the contribution rate. led primarily by Brandon Nee at CSA. They said, don't do that. Keep paying more so that that becomes healthy faster. This has got challenges in that it is a closed system. If you're elected now, you don't have access to what they call the Tier 1 EORP system. We received $250,000 a year from the state to help us cover those costs, but it's going to be high for a long time. And it's built in as well that if we have an elected official who is not in this system, we still pay an equalized rate for that to get the system healthy. We've already talked about the 4% raise. This maintains our ability to continue to help in senior and homebound programs, and gives some budget room if other needs in the community show up that the board feels that they want to contribute to. There's not a lot there because we don't really tax our citizens or to give it away to other citizens. That's not the way we do it. Again, we're living within our means. We are continuing to use federally sourced funds to help in capital projects wherever we can. Much of what we're doing right now would not have occurred except for federally sourced funds stemming from COVID. We're not standing up new programs. We are bringing on some new employees this year across a couple of departments. We believe that will eventually make us much more efficient. And then, like I said, we've always lived by that if we're standing up programs based on grants, when the grants go away, so does the program. Our cash position is still strong. With the unexpected last 2 to 3 months of state shared sales tax, our cash position will continue to be strong. We've talked about how we've used our cash reserves to shore up our flood control district, acquire an ambulance, finish up capital projects, and paying down the actuarial unfunded liability. The general fund this year has 122 full-time equivalent positions, special revenues 48 positions, and 170 total full-time equivalent positions in the budget. Like I say, that is up a bit because we've added some positions. The impact will also be a little bit larger than simply adding a position, primarily because our sheriff is actually filling positions now. And so, whereas we've always budgeted for that, we had the budget capacity, we seldom were at full staff. We're consistently full staff over there now. You've got the budgeting forms. We could go through the entire 1.5-inch, 2-inch book, whatever it is, but I think we'll skip that unless you really would like to.
Should we get a consensus? Anybody
want to do that? Okay.
I'm on board.
Okay. It is both it will be on the website as soon as the board passes it, as well as we'll have copies if people need them. It's broken down into these categories. These are dictated by the Auditor General's office. Some of those, Schedule F and G, E, F, and G, were added over the years at the insistence of the Arizona Tax Research Association, so it can sort of attribute to where the money's going by department. But it gives essentially a summary where our property taxes, how much they are, where they derive from, our other revenue sources. We do some transfers within to take stuff either out of the general fund and put it in a special revenue like our roads, or vice versa. And then talks about expenditures by fund, by department, and then full-time equivalents. We adopt as part of our budget an unassigned fund balance policy. This allows us, by way of the Auditor General, to carve out a $4 million, $5 million, we raised it a couple years ago. In simple terms, you might call it a rainy day fund. It really doesn't work like a true rainy day fund. We've got to hit certain revenue negative markers before this money becomes available to us. So we couldn't, for example, mid-year say, you know what, let's buy everybody a new car, Oprah Winfrey style, and just dip into this. This only comes into play if our monthly revenues start to drop below $400,000. That's the threshold. And then that kicks in some responsibilities on our finance department to start reviewing, expenses. What can we cut? What can we hold? Do we not fill vacant, positions? In years past, I know Supervisor Campbell and Chairman Gomez remember, there have been times where nobody hired anybody without specific board approval. And that creates some tension, but it allowed us to maintain and control our budget. That's what this is. So as part of the budget adoption, you adopt this policy that allows us to hold that $5 million in reserve. That would be enough to get us in about a 2-year cycle before we can either go back to the voters or make other adjustments. It would not be enough to live on for more than a couple of months on its own, but it allows us to get through to there if things turn really south. Likewise, we have a funding policy. We will close the gap with the payment that's already been made that you approved. But there will always be most likely a small amount of unfunded liability. That is because it is an actuarial liability and not an actual dollar liability. What this funding policy says is that whatever is unfunded on an actual basis will be amortized over a 20 to 30 year period. And they set this up now where it's actually rolling periods of 15 years. So the unfunded liability from 26 gets amortized over 15 years. That's just like a credit card or a mortgage payment you're paying off over 15 years. Next year, that amount will be amortized over 15 years. Just like with a mortgage or a credit card, if you pay off a bunch of it, then the amount amortized gets smaller. There's a chance, depending on market conditions, in the next, well, they'll measure it as of June 30th of this year. There's a chance we could be overfunded by a few percent. Over time, that won't likely hold. But nevertheless, we adopt this policy that allows us to amortize that unfunded amount and not have to pay it up every month fresh.
So currently we're at 94%. Where were we before we paid that down?
We were as low as 53%. Yes, and that's going back now 5 years, well, 4 years, because the difference in timing, 4.5 years. But we were down to 50, I think 53% was our lowest. So we've made concerted efforts, and I'll emphasize this because I think it's critical that we understand this. We did this with cash, not additional debt. Almost, I think the only other county that did that was Graham County, and they paid it off over 4 or 5 years. We got most of ours down in 1 and the remainder in another year. Everybody else took on what they call pension bonds, and so they refinanced at very favorable rates. But as we did the math on it, you've got to get 7.2% return in order to make the actuarial numbers work. That's the assumed rate of return. If you borrow money at 2%, or we were probably looking at 2.5%, all of a sudden that return has got to make 9.5% in order to break even. And so because we had the cash, we were able to pay that down and save 20 to 30 years worth of interest on a debt.
Yeah.
Okay. We've gone over the improvement plan. We've looked at this. There's not changed since you approved it before the tentative budget, but you'll see a lot of this stuff. Evaluate. We've added some things on that we're going to tackle soon, so we know exactly how big of a problem we've got. But this is what you've already approved. This is our second level. Sometimes things move from tier 1 to tier 2 and back and forth, depending on whether we're getting tier 1 accomplished. But we, generally speaking, won't move to tier 2 until we've completed or substantially completed tier 1 projects. These are more aspirational. We don't take them off so we don't forget them, but we're not going to be actively pursuing and doing these projects. We're not going to be building a jail starting next week, for example. But we can't lose sight of the fact that that's a problem we're going to have to address eventually. This resolution comes from the Auditor General. This is language we use. We put it on our letterhead this year because Vice Chairman will be running the meeting, and we need to get this signed on the website as soon as we can. It'll have your signature on it as opposed to the chairman, but the effect is the same. The board passes this, and the motions incorporate all those other policies we just covered. The resolution basically says we're adopting it, and this is our official budget at this point. There's a similar resolution for the Public Health Services District. Interestingly, we don't have one for the Flood Control District. That is treated separately. It is treated like a special revenue fund as opposed to a standalone, fully operational Public Health Services District. the board of directors for both is the same as the board of supervisors, you guys. But this spells out in resolution form, similar as we did for the general budget. And that's that. And certainly glad to stand for any questions.
I don't have any questions. Great job. Will, you got anything?
No, thank you very much. Lots of work.
Chairman Gomez, you have anything?
I have nothing. We've gone over this whole thing. Thank you.
For months, yes. So it's great to see it finally come to fruition, so. Okay.
So I start,
So you'll start there. Step 3.
I move that we adjourn out of special board meeting for the budget and go back to the regular board meeting.
We actually,
Or do we
we should probably adopt the budget. while
adopt
we're-
Oh,
the
okay.
budget
Yes.
first?
Okay.
For motion 1, I motion for setting the primary property tax rate for Greenlee County pursuant to ARS 42-17107. I move to set the fiscal year 26-27 primary property tax rate for Greenlee County at .8967 per $100 of assessed value.
Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes.
Proposed motion number 2, a motion for setting the Public Health Services District tax rate. I move to set the fiscal year 26-27 Public Health Services District tax rate at .2500 per $100 of assessed value.
I second that motion.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes.
Proposed motion number 3, a motion for setting the Flood Control District tax rate. I move to set the fiscal year 26-27 flood control tax rate at .1924 per $100 of assessed value.
I second that motion.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes.
And proposed motion number 4, motion for adoption of the budget, final budget, pursuant to ARS 42-17105. I move to adopt the fiscal year 26-27 Greenlee County budget as follows. To adopt the general budget fund budget in the amount of $21,489,000 and $489,193, and the total budget in the amount of $50,060,108. This includes the flood control budget in the amount of $1,951,216 and the Public Health Services District budget in the amount of $3,094,623. This motion includes the passage of the resolution for the adoption of the final budget for fiscal year 2027, the passage of the resolution of the Board of Directors of the Greenlee County Public Health Services District regarding the fiscal year 2027 tax levy and rate, the adoption of the fiscal year 2027 capital improvement plan, the fund balance policy, and the public safety personnel retirement system pension funding policy.
And I second that motion.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. All right. Well, that's good. Now we'll move into, after we've adopted, to the adjourn out of the special board meeting.
Now we move to right.
I move to adjourn out of the special board meeting for the budget and go back into regular board meeting.
I second that motion.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. We are now back into our regular scheduled board meeting. Thank you, Derek, for explaining all that. And thank you, Renee and Austin, and everybody involved in setting that, getting that budget prepared. So move into agenda item 6. Derek Rapier and Bianca.
We've covered a lot of this, so I'll be quick on this. You're familiar with this chart. This is our county sales tax. You'll see that in this yellow column, our monthly sales tax receipt on our half-cent local sales taxes trailed up. It resulted in a higher, quarter than we've seen all the rest of the year. This figure up here in the top, the 121, is last year's final quarter, so we're good $40,000 on average over. On the year, we averaged 145 and projected 120. So it was a good year. It wasn't, we're not dramatically above, year over year, but it's certainly been better than projected. So we end up with about one extra month's worth of revenue on the year. The more dramatic, of course, is on our shared sales tax. We're up almost 1.7 million over projection. The total receipts, we projected 5.4. We ended up with 7.1 in $1 million in state shared sales tax. Between the two, we ended up with just about 1.9, or all $150,000 short of 2 million over projections. You see that the year ended very well. Both this last month, almost $700,000 was our second highest receipt, total for the year. On this 590 here, that's what our average monthly sales tax. You can see it's $140,000 over our monthly projection. As we scroll up here, this, of course, the 544 was last year's last quarter. We're up, good, 60, 70, 80,000 on average for the monthly total. We'll continue to monitor these. The other thing that's important here is you see that this is the year over the 3-year average. This is year over year. This year versus last year, almost all months were up, and those 2 months that were down only slightly. These are the trends, not just the monthly thing, but the trends that we watch to say what is a safe projection going forward. A lot of the fundamentals of copper are very favorable right now. I don't know exactly when. We've got a meeting coming. FMI would like to come down and do a presentation on their geothermal project and explain how that works. But everything we've been told that it should reduce cost quite a bit. The overall global copper market, from what I've been able to learn from FMI and other sources, appears to be on the upswing. So I think those numbers are going to trend well going into fiscal year 27. We will know 2 or 3 months into it how much energy costs affect that. But on the whole, we're in good shape.
And we're going to project 5 or 550?
6.
6?
Yes, we projected 6 million in state shares.
No, but the monthly 500,000.
500,000.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
500 even.
Okay.
So that seems modest, only 50,000 more a month.
Yeah.
But over a 12-year period, obviously that's a 10% increase. We may dramatically overshoot that. My sense is that by January, once the election's behind us, and hopefully this war is behind us, we'll be able to see what new normal looks like. But I would not lay in bed at night and worry about what tomorrow's bringing, because it'll just make you sick.
Mm-hmm.
It's so volatile right now. There's so many. Even with the death of Senator Graham, completely unexpected. yet it has an effect. It changes the balance of power somewhat. So there's a lot of things that if you watch every day. My wife finally said, you can't wake up in the morning and check your news feeds is the first thing you do. Very wise counsel, very hard to do. So, but nevertheless, I think we're in good shape on this front. Shifting to the legislative front, obviously, weird thing when you go into late June, all of a sudden you've probably noticed in the last 3 to 4 weeks, about 3 weeks, the number of ads has just gone through the roof. And some of them aren't even for our districts that we vote on. They're interesting though. And that's because they push so long. You cannot raise money while you're in the legislature for a race. So as soon as they get out, the money flows in, the ads go out. But nobody's thinking about legislation right now. Moreover, nobody's thinking about what legislation should be going on. We won't know who the leadership is. Warren Peterson will not be the Senate president. He's running for a different office. So whether he wins or loses, he's not going to be running the Senate. There are many who are speculating that Speaker Montenegro may be challenged, either by somebody who's returning to the House or somebody who's already there. So we don't know who leadership's going to be. We don't even know for certain which party's going to control both houses. So legislation we're not worried about. What we are worried about is there are 10 referrals to the ballot from the legislature, which makes our elections director grumpy because it means we may have to go to a 2-page ballot, which we've never done. And she gets grouchy when we talk about that. It's just an extra layer of things to worry about in an election. But they are all over the map. And I would strongly encourage both the board as well as everybody else to look at those. Some of them will have dramatic effects on things like education funding. Others will have seemingly very little effect, but lays the groundwork for changes in the future. And so I would strongly encourage people to get those pamphlets, read about them. One of the other things we worry about is that people show up on election day and they've never read them and they're confronted with 11 different ballot measures and they're trying to sort them out in real time at the ballot box. There will be one citizens initiative. It deals with funding for empowerment scholarships. So there'll be 11 things, and so we will cover those if you want us to in future board meetings. But by and large, that's on the responsibility of voters to go to the polls informed. And that's all I have for budget and legislative things.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Bianca, what you got?
This week, Friday, is the last day to vote early in person for our primary election. The NACO annual conference does begin on the 17th and it goes to the 20th. Election day is next Tuesday, the 21st. So go out and vote. I do have our second board meeting on the scheduled for the 28th. I don't remember.
Of July?
Yeah. I think there was a question mark on that.
We talked about bumping it simply because we have one the very following Monday,
Yeah,
and have them, just 6 days apart doesn't necessarily make sense.
do we need it on the 28th?
I believe we can do without it on the 28th. We've got things in the works in our various departments and stuff, but nothing that couldn't hold for an additional 6 days.
Because we have one on the 3rd, and that's in the afternoon.
Right, at
And
one.
that's on a Monday.
Yeah, it's on a
Yes.
Monday, but that's in the afternoon, because that's when CSA is coming, right?
Yes,
Yes.
and importantly, we also adopt tax rates officially
Yeah,
that
yeah.
day.
So Chairman Gomez, I don't know if you're in alignment, but I think canceling that one on the 28th.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Let's do that then. We'll cancel the meeting on the 28th, and then we'll cover whatever we were going to cancel or cover there on the 3rd in the afternoon. Right?
And we'll begin at 1. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, yes.
CSA is coming at 1, so I will go ahead and correct that. It does say 8 a.m. I will go ahead and correct it to 1 p.m.
1 p.m. on the 3rd.
And I would expect that to be a fairly busy meeting.
Yeah.
So,
And that's good. We can just keep going.
yep.
Okay, and Moving on into August, our second board meeting would be on the 18th, regular Tuesday, 8 a.m. County managers on the 21st, and SEGO meeting hosted by Greenlee also on the 21st, Friday. That's all I have for August, unless the board has something to add.
Bianca, Seagull's going to be with Town of Clifton's going to sponsor it.
Oh, it's Clifton, okay.
It'll be in Greenlee County, but sponsored by the Town of Clifton. Is that right, Chairman?
That's correct. And I think that day is going to change because of them being off on Fridays. It's going to go to a Thursday. The Thursday before it was scheduled.
20th?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the board meeting on the 18th, I've made a request to move that out a week to the 25th. Does anybody have any issues with moving that meeting from August 18th to the 25th?
I have no issues with that.
David, do you have
I
any?
don't have any problem with that either.
Okay.
You know, as we look forward on the calendar, if we moved the 18th down to the 25th, then we're again having just 1 week before the 1st. And I don't know whether or not we would want to consider moving our September meetings to the 8th and the 22nd. That creates a 2-week spacing all the way through August, September, and into October.
My only thought is on September 8th, that's the day after Labor Day. I don't know if that would cause any issues with being prepared to have that meeting on the 8th for you guys.
We can do it.
Okay.
Well, let me be honest. Bianca manages it very well. I sound like
I was
me.
kind of looking at her, but
We, as Bianca and those of us who hang on to watch her moves,
We could do it.
we could do it. And that moves us also off of Fair Week
Yeah.
on the 15th to the following week, and that can be helpful. There's a lot of last minute stuff, again, primarily falling on our fair director's shoulders, but we try to be there to help as well.
so we're gonna move the August 18th to the 25th. Okay. And then we're gonna move from September 1 to September 8th. And the 15th through the 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yep.
That works.
All right. You good with that, Chairman Gomez?
I am.
All right. Okay, good. Do you want to go over September, or are we
Okay.
already good?
I'm good. You're good. I'll
Okay.
make all those adjustments on our tentative meeting dates and then have our IT reposted on our website.
And September is when it starts ECO, small counties, and CSA again, too.
Yes.
And I believe the CSA annual legislative conference begins on the 6th of October. 6th through the 8th.
Yes.
Yeah, why they decided to hold it right in the middle of the week, I'm not certain, but it's in Flagstaff this year.
Okay.
And that's, of course, where we develop CSA's legislative
Right.
agenda for the coming year.
Bianca, have you heard anything about opening for reservations?
I have not. I was actually just going to ask if any of
I haven't seen it.
you supervisors have received anything. I haven't seen anything. Have you?
I haven't, I'll check again today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, that's all for the calendar?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we'll move into agenda item 7, the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as noted.
I second that motion.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. All right, we'll go into item 8, supervisor reports. Mr. Warren?
Well, I currently don't have anything to report at this time.
Chairman
I
Gomez?
currently don't have anything to report either.
All right. Well, I had just one thing to report. I was able to attend the, it was the Mount Graham Safe House, and their kind of their I think their Greenlee part, preparing for that. I was able to have a good discussion with them and hear kind of what they're going to do going forward, and looking forward to getting their. Right now, they've got the pad, and we've assisted with that. Got the pad, I think, completed, and waiting for concrete to be able to get the manufactured home that's going to serve as that office and that area for them to support, people dealing with domestic abuse in our county. So I think that's amazing. I did want to mention, thank you guys for coming. The Greenlee County Substance Abuse Coalition, obviously, in Call to the Public, all we can say is thank you. But anyway, thank you, and we welcome you to come back and present to us how you guys might be able to, or how we might be able to assist you. But we don't know how until you ask, so please do that. But that's all that I have for supervisor reports, and we'll go to agenda item 9, adjournment. We are adjourned. All right.